This is a demonstration of the JJP Puig drums and cymbals and percussion plugins from Waves. These are plugins available as an individual product or also part of the JJP Puig Signature Series collection. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how these plugins sound processing a typical multi-track drum recording. I'll go through and show you how they sound on the individual tracks and also how it sounds across the full mix. I'm going to show you the features of the plugin and show you the controls, and then I'll also talk about the technical specifications for the plugins. So here's my typical multi-track drum recording. I've got kick drums, snares, toms, hi-hat, overhead, and 2 pairs of room mics. I've got the plugins inserted on each channel, and all I've done is open up the plugin and then selected the appropriate setting for the individual mics. So I have a kick drum, in mic, kick out, snare top and bottom, toms, and then over here I have the hi-hat on my hi-hat channel, overhead, room for my ambient tracks. I also want to mention that these plugins insert some processing delay when you're using it inside of a DAW, and the drums plugin and the cymbals and percussion plugin actually introduce different amounts of delay. So I have this time adjuster plugin set up so that they both incur the same amount of delay, 630 samples. That's just something to be aware of when you're using these plugins. Let me play it back and show you how it sounds now. What I'll do is bypass it to begin with, and then add it back in and take it out so you can hear throughout the performance. So hopefully you were able to hear, just by inserting this single plugin across all the tracks, it's making a dramatic difference, very significant difference in the way that the drums sound. There's an EQ curve that's being imposed that makes the top end a little bit brighter, it makes the low end a little bit more thumpy. There's some dynamics going on to make the drums punch and also kind of level out how loud the drums are across the mix. Let me show you how some of these sound on individual mics or for individual instruments. So I'll start out with the kick drum. Now I'll show you the snare. Show you the toms. They just come in a second. All right, now the hi-hat and overheads. The room. So that's how the plugin sounds. Let me show you the features now and the controls inside of the plugin. So the way that this plugin works is you have signal that goes through it. You have an input knob here that controls the input level coming in. What you want to do is look at this indicator, and you want the signal to be making the light change from either to the color of yellow or orange. If it goes to red, that's too loud. If it's green, it's too quiet. So I'll play it back. You can see it's right at the right level. The reason why they have this is because there are dynamics processors that follow when the signal comes in. So you have a gate and you have a compressor. These kinds of dynamic processors expect that the signal is going to be at some specific level coming into the plugin so that it can process it based on something like a threshold. Now, you don't have to worry about all these different kinds of parameters for these processors, like the threshold, the ratio, the attack, the release, and those kind of settings, those are controlled behind the scenes and based on the preferences of Jack Joseph Puig for the different instruments. So that's why you need to select the kick in, kick out, because a lot of that processing is different behind the scenes for the different instruments. You have EQ over here for the input section. You have low and high. You don't have to worry about what frequencies you're using. You just turn it up, see if it sounds good. If not, turn it back down. So that's the real input section. Then you have these parallel channels that you can mix in to go along with the input section. This main knob controls the level after this input section, the compressor and the gate and the EQ. These parallel channels, each of them sound a little bit different. You're not really sure what kind of processing is going on, but the names would tell you or give you some intuition about how they're going to sound. So if you're mixing your drums and you're like, my kick drum needs more attack to it or needs more punch, you just turn that up and hopefully it achieves the result that you're looking for. As sub, and these other ones, you can turn them off just by clicking them like this if you don't like how it sounds. And then you have a master control over here that controls the level of all these things being mixed together through the master fader. You have some metering over here, including a red LED to indicate clipping. You can monitor the input section for the metering or assign the input section to the metering or the output to see how it sounds. Similar sort of thing for the Jack Joseph Puig cymbals and percussion input section where you control the input level coming in, EQ, compressors. For the hi-hat, you have panning control. For the overheads, you don't have panning. And that's just the way that it works. Again, you have parallel channels that you can mix in together. You can turn them off the same way. It's very similar. This is a very intuitive way for the plugins to be laid out. If you don't have a lot of experience mixing, hopefully these will be easy for you to use and easy for you to get a good sound. They're very versatile because you have so many different controls to use, but it's also very easy to know exactly what you're doing when you're playing around with these different faders and knobs. I also want to say that these plugins include some presets. You have hi-hat, room, tambourine, shaker, and overheads. The ones I haven't showed you are these settings, the tambourine, shaker, and loops. And I also want to show you the drums one. You have different presets over here, kick, snare, and toms. Different ones that you can try out. Again, each of these has a little bit different parallel processing going on. So for the toms, you see you have verb, you have tone and punch, which is a little bit different than the kick drum. And then for the snare, you have verb, presence, and wood, whereas the kick drum you had sub. So those are the kind of differences between the plugins in the different settings. Hopefully that gives you an idea about how to use the plugin and how it sounds. Last thing I want to mention are technical specifications. These plugins are compatible with PC and Mac formats. They support RTAS, Audio Suite, VST, and AU plugin formats. You can use them up to 96 kilohertz in sampling rate and 24-bit resolution. In summary, these are all-in-one processing chains that have all the effects that you would need to mix drums. So you don't have to insert multiple effects, one for a compressor, one for a gate, one for an EQ. You just insert one plugin. It's got all the controls that you need right in front of you. It's easy, intuitively laid out, and simple to use.